post. He's out. William on the drive. Pull up. Got it!
A grand slam for Masters. Witherspoon in the corner, on the way and good.
More big hit in him. A bomb.
Shapen, wide open, caught across the middle. Thompson, touchdown! Mississippi State, the national champions.
Wrap it in maroon and white.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Breakdown, presented by the Bulldog Student Sports Network. My name is Connor Davis, and we are here for episode 6. I can't believe there's already been 6 episodes of our brand new project. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Ty Golmon, and every show we like to start off with what the other sports have been being up to and going on with them. So why don't you go ahead and hit us with that?
So only just 2 to talk about, and they kind of join together. We'll talk about just continue to pay attention to men's and women's tennis over the course of this week. Follow their social media accounts, Hail State MT and Hail State WT for both men's and women's tennis. They're competing in the NCAA singles and doubles championships this week, so continue to pay attention to how they're doing this week.
And I got a little bit of a other sport for me, Ty. If you're interested in flag football, I know we end up doing football at the end of the show, but Special Olympics, I'm actually a coach for. I don't know if you knew that about me. A little bit extra up my sleeve that I usually do. We have our Egg Bowl, and we'll touch on the Egg Bowl at the end of the show. We have our Egg Bowl in Oxford tomorrow. So hopefully we get that done, but let's go to volleyball. You couldn't get it done this past weekend in Starkville. You had 2 home games against Missouri and Vanderbilt. Friday, Missouri, you lost 3-0, and then Vandy, you lost 3-2 this past Sunday. Missouri, there's not really much to say about Missouri as it was 3-0, but Vandy was super, super challenging. So, a team you thought you could beat. They only had 2 away wins going into this game. Now, touch on these different games that you thought you could see, and then we'll go into the SEC tournament here in just a second.
Yeah, we'll just talk about Missouri just for a second. Both teams didn't necessarily play their best. State just happened to be the team that didn't play as good. Really rough first set for the Bulldogs. Sets 2 and 3 were competitive, but State just too many errors along in set 1 and also in sets 2 and 3 to come out on top in that one. So they lose 3-0 to Missouri. Vanderbilt game, really a tough fight between the two teams all in all sets in that game. It was really close, really tight. 31 ties and 12 lead changes total in the match. For State, sets 2 and 3 really hurt them, and State did well in sets 1 and 4 with good hit percentages, but in sets 2 and 3, a 114 hit percentage and a 189 hit percentage did not bode well for them. Vanderbilt won those 2 sets and barely won those 2 sets, might I add. So, State hits a little bit better and plays a little bit better in those 2 sets. Maybe they come out on top, but that's just not how it played out. Vanderbilt in set 5 played really well with the game on the line, a 400 hitting percentage, and they won that set 15-10. So yeah, a game you thought you should have won. Vanderbilt, coming into the SEC tournament, and we also are going to talk about that. We play Vanderbilt again, but Vanderbilt coming into the SEC tournament, a number 15 seed out of 16 teams in the SEC. So the second worst team in the league. Thought you could win that one, especially at home. Couldn't come out on top.
And you definitely should have. That fourth set especially was probably the best you played all night against Vanderbilt. But we'll see what they do when it comes SEC tournament time. It's time to get your get back. Get a little revenge on Vanderbilt as you go into the SEC tournament. The first round, Mississippi State, you're a 10th seed. As Ty said, you're playing the 15th seed, Vanderbilt Commodores. Now, you win this. You go into the second round, you play Georgia. You beat Georgia, you go into the quarterfinals against A&M. But first, let's talk about Vanderbilt. What do you have to do, especially you just played Vanderbilt? Talk about the weaknesses in that game. What do you have to do to beat Vanderbilt to go on and play someone like Georgia, who you lost in Athens 2-3, and then you lost to A&M here in Starkville 3-0. So what do you have to do with Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I mean, really all last week it was a bunch of low hitting percentages in sets and a lot of errors in sets. It really hurt Mississippi State. So got to clean that up. Get some production around the roster. Lindsey Mangelson has continued to play well. Got to have her continue to shine. I think, if State just plays a little bit more complete, especially against Vanderbilt, I think they can handle them. It's just they didn't do that in the game on Sunday against Vanderbilt in Starkville. So in sets 2 and 3, really struggled in those. So got to play complete throughout the rest or throughout the match. And then if we can get to Georgia, we can get to Georgia, and we can worry about A&M after that. So that Georgia game in Athens was also really competitive. So that could be another competitive match. Look forward to the SEC tournament and hope the ladies can figure it out. And maybe bring home an SEC tournament win.
Hopefully, and you see how valuable Lindsey Mangelson is for that volleyball team. If she doesn't perform good, like she didn't have as many kills this weekend as she usually does in her performances. If she doesn't perform good, you see losses on the board for Mississippi State. That's how good Lindsey Mangelson is for this Mississippi State volleyball team. But we move to our next sport. We move to soccer. It's NCAA tournament time. You hosted Lipscomb here in Starkville, Mississippi. Starting in 2011, the all-time series was tied 3-3. It was the 7th all-time game, and the tie was broken. Mississippi State loses to Lipscomb 1-0 at home. After an incredible first year by Nick Zimmerman, what did you notice? You can kind of reflect on the year if you wish, starting with the game this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, in the match had plenty of opportunities and way more than Lipscomb. 18 total shots for Mississippi State, 6 of those on goal. Mississippi State possessed the ball for 72% of the game and couldn't find a goal. I mean, Lipscomb's defense played wonderful, continued to deny Mississippi State's offense. 6 shots on goal. Those were all saves by Lipscomb. So did a really good job, Lipscomb's defense did, in stifling Mississippi State. Mississippi State had a lot of opportunities. And the thing, too, Lipscomb only had 3 total shots in the game. Only 3. 2 of those were on goal. 1 of those found the back of the net. So Lipscomb very efficient in their little shots that they had. Mississippi State was, had 6 shots on goals out of 18 shots, but just couldn't come up with at least an equalizer to push it into overtime. So just a disappointing loss there. But you mentioned kind of wrap up the season. State finished 12-7-1, 5-4-1 in the SEC. Beat some really good teams this year. Beat Wake Forest at the beginning of the year. Beat Tennessee to open up SEC play. Beat Arkansas in the SEC tournament. So Mississippi State, defeated some really good teams this year. And I think they've got a lot to look forward to, because I think this, you look at the roster, it's a pretty young roster. And, first year under Nick Zimmerman, I think the girls love playing for him. A really great motivational coach. So I think soccer fans from Mississippi State have a lot to look forward to as this program continues to have some success now. Ever since we had Coach James Armstrong come in and kind of change things, now Nick Zimmerman at the helm, and he's continuing the winning ways for Mississippi State. Just couldn't quite come out on top in round 1 of the NCAA tournament.
And when it comes to the NCAA tournament, sometimes it only takes 1 goal to advance. But I do agree. You see how Armstrong did whenever he left here. He really established that winning culture, and Nick Zimmerman is just continuing that. He really doesn't have to establish much, but I'm glad he's doing what he's doing for Starkville. But that's going to end our soccer talk for the entire season until next year. But we move to basketball. We start with the women. It was a little bit of in-state action, as we mentioned last weekend, against Jackson State, with the Lady Dogs on top, 82-55. What I noticed in this game is you had a really, really strong start against Jackson State, but that second quarter hit and that third quarter hit, and you struggled against Jackson State. What did you see there?
I think, first quarter was great. It was I can't remember the exact scoring or what the scoring differential was.
22-5.
Thank you. 22-5 for Mississippi State in that first quarter, and then it got really close. I think the scoring differential between the second and the third quarters combined was only 1 point.
You're right.
So, Jackson State just started to shoot the ball better. State really got on them in the first quarter. I really wasn't worried too much about that second and third quarter as some people might be worried about it. I just think JSU started to shoot the ball better. It's not like State was allowing easy shots. I mean, Jackson State was just shooting the basketball better. And then the fourth quarter came around, State dominated again. So, overall, good win for State, 82-55. They still undefeated on the season. Overall in the game, thought we shot the ball really well. Again, this offense is going to do that. A lot of good shooters on this team. And, the thing that we mentioned that State's got to continue to clean up, the turnover number. It did stay the same, I believe, from the Mississippi Valley State game. I think we had 14 turnovers in that one. So 14 in the JSU game as well. That's got to continue to just at least stay around that number and not go higher than that, or at least go down, because the way we shoot the basketball, it's going to be a really, really good offense. Didn't shoot the free throws as well in this game. Free throw line, State missed, I believe, around 8. So, highest miss total since the Davidson game at the beginning of the season. So, got to continue to work on that. Just a really fun defense, too. A really fun defense to watch. Only allowed 55 points. Really dominated in the first quarter and in the fourth quarter. So, really fun defense. And then, to kind of wrap up with that game, too, and just overall through the first first games of the season, the freshmen have been great, including, talk about Jayla Lampley, Madison Francis. They have been wonderful to watch. And, Wade Dozie has been good for State. Another double-double in the Jackson State game with 18 points, 15 rebounds. Averaging a double-double this season is Favor Wade Dozie. And 6 players finished in double digits scoring-wise for Mississippi State in that one. So a good win for Mississippi State. They continue to handle business, and they got a big one coming up against Texas Tech.
Yes, and it's been awesome to see how they've been able to open up and close games this season. But let's see if they can do it against this competition. Thursday, you play Texas Tech away in Lubbock, Texas. Texas Tech coming off an SEC victory against Arkansas, 80-68. Ty, we look at how the women have competed in the past. I believe they played 5 games so far, 4 or 5 games.
4.
4, excuse me. But Texas Tech's your 5th one. How do you get your Texas Tech win?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a tough one on the road. This is your first game on the road this season for a team full of newcomers. So it's going to be an interesting kind of dynamic with those girls going on the road. We'll see how they react to that on the road. Texas Tech 5-0 this season. You mentioned, they've already beaten an SEC foe in Arkansas, beat them by 12. Arkansas, not one of the premier teams in the league, but still, a good Power 4 win for the Red Raiders. They've just overall, under head coach Krista Gerlich, and I'm hoping I'm saying that name right, but under her, they've kind of been average at best over the last 5 years, kind of around the 500 mark under her as the head coach. So that's just kind of an outlook on what they've been over the last couple of years, but it'll still be a big test. As the team has shown promise this year, 5-0 start. So State, got to rebound the ball well. It's your first game against a Power 4 team, so there's going to be some different kind of players compared to who you've played in the first 4 games. Got to continue to establish a presence inside of the paint in terms of rebounding the basketball and also scoring inside. Make your shots outside like you've been doing. I don't think that's going to be very hard for Mississippi State, and the only thing I'll continue to harp on is turnovers. Just do not turn the ball over that much. Let your offense go to work. This is a good offense. I think one of the best in the SEC. When they are shooting it the way they're shooting it. So, just don't turn the ball over as much. I know that sounds so simple, Connor, but, it really is the key for offensive success in the game. And then, defensively, I think State's going to have success continuing to work and, garner a fast-paced kind of identity on defense and really try and speed teams up and turn them over. So should be an interesting one against Texas Tech, and I look forward to it.
It has been promising for both teams. Texas Tech and Mississippi State has been showing what they want to show this season as they're both undefeated. But I'd like to mention that Mississippi State will also be competing in the Emerald Coast Classic. They'll play Alcorn State November 24th, and then the next day on the 25th, they'll either play Middle Tennessee State or Providence, depending on how that game goes. But we move to men's basketball. After a strenuous game against Iowa State, it seemed Mississippi State kind of had a laid-back game against Southeastern Louisiana, but You ended up only winning 75-68 here at the Hump. I'd like to mention Sean Jones Jr. Amazing performance by him. I mean, he led the team with 17 points and 4 assists. It couldn't have gotten any better for Sean Jones when it came against the game with Southeastern Louisiana. What did you think about that?
Yeah, just to talk, I'll hit on Sean Jones first. Yeah, 17 points, led the team, and shot 3 of 4 from the three-point line. So a really good job shooting the basketball behind the arc. If he can do that this season and replicate, being able to shoot the basketball like that just as kind of a catch-and-shoot type of guy, that would be great for the Bulldogs offense. Now just getting into, the game in general. Turned the ball over still too much. I mean, you had all those turnovers against Iowa State, and I still think you turned it over too much against Southeastern Louisiana, as you had 16 turnovers. And the thing that makes me think that too is Southeastern Louisiana, a great job in executing and scoring off of those turnovers. 26 points off turnovers for the Lions out of Hammond, Louisiana. So a good job from them. And that really made a difference in the game, is Southeastern being able to take advantage of the Bulldogs' turnovers. So 16, State's got to cut that out. And the thing too, State shot it well again, 45% from the field, 38% from three. You may not think that's as good. If you're near 40% from three, I think you're okay and you bode pretty well. So, and like we mentioned, most of that was Sean Jones shooting 75% from behind the arc. So defensively, I felt like you kind of got sloppy and lackadaisical after your turnovers. When State turned the ball over, it kind of felt like State was just a little bit sloppy on the other end.
That's kind of giving up a little bit.
Exactly. That's what it kind of looked like to me. And especially late in the game, it looked like that as well. Southeastern went on a late run, really cut it close with Mississippi State, ended up, only losing by 7 in that game. So, State when you turn the basketball over offensively, can't let that replicate or stay in your mind. I'll eventually find the word for it, Connor. Can't let that stay in your mind when you go towards the defensive end. So, overall, State, did a couple things well, but a lot to work on in this one. So, coming out of this one, and not easy games coming up, and coming up most close to us is going to be Kansas State.
Yes, and I would like to mention don't have the most experience when it comes to basketball. One thing I can say is offense is only half the battle. Whenever you lose a rep on offense, you got to hustle back down the court and play some D, because you didn't have to have 25-plus points off turnovers for Southeastern Louisiana. You could have cut it a lot short, and then you wouldn't be seeing 75-68, which is a little concerning, especially when you get into conference play. But as Ty said, Hall of Fame Classic, Mississippi State is competing in Kansas City, Missouri. You play Kansas State on Thursday, and then either Nebraska or New Mexico the next day on Friday. So the game's in Starkville. The week after that, you have New Orleans on November 24th, and then SMU on the 28th. There's a lot to have for basketball. We get into the Hall of Fame Classic. I understand turnovers is the name of the game. You said it for the women. You're probably going to say it for the men. Before I take those words out your mouth, what can the men do for this Hall of Fame Classic and become Hall of Famers?
I'll just talk about Kansas State, because that's really the only game you really can preview for while you're waiting on Nebraska and New Mexico. Now, Nebraska, it has had some success early this season, and New Mexico has been good over the past couple of years. So I think whoever we play in that one will be tough. But Kansas State 4-0 so far this season. Head coach Jerome Tang. But close wins over Cal, a 99-96 win over Cal, and a 84-83 win over Tulsa. So some really close wins. They're 4-0. I'm just going to be blunt, and I hope this doesn't come back to bite me in the butt. But I don't think this is a very good Kansas State team. I believe they're picked to be around the bottom of the Big 12. I don't think this is a very good Kansas State team. Not to say that Mississippi State can overlook this team, because they cannot. Only winning by now 2-0-4 Southeastern Louisiana team by 7. Obviously you can't overlook any team. So just to look at though Kansas State, what they do well. They shoot it at a 55% clip from the field, which is pretty good, and a 46% clip from the three-point line. Those are really good numbers. that's something that's going to be interesting. You got to watch out for P.J. Haggerty, who comes from Memphis, averaging 26 points a game this season. That is a really impressive number. But you look at some things that they have struggled with, at least in the last two wins to Cal and Tulsa. Allowed 96 to Cal and 83 to Tulsa. That's a lot of points to allow. So maybe State's offense can have some success. And offensively for Kansas State, turn it over 15 times a game. So right in that middle mark of being a high number. But that is a lot of turnovers a game. So they do a lot of things. They do some things well. Have some star players, as I mentioned, like P.J. Haggerty. I think there's a lot of things that State can capitalize on in this one. Hopefully State can win and then, beat Nebraska or New Mexico, whoever we play. But definitely can't overlook Kansas State, even though maybe I don't think they're as good. Still a Power 4 opponent, still Power 4 talent. And we've seen how we played against a Power 4 team already this season, even though Iowa State, a better squad this year than Kansas State. But Iowa State kind of handled us in that loss in Sioux Falls. So State got to lock in against Kansas State and get a win. And then I'll just say real quick, you mentioned New Orleans and SMU. New Orleans also, recently blew out Tulane, so it was a good win for them. They've lost to LSU this season, 93-58, and then, SMU undefeated right now at the time of recording. So, a couple of good teams. It doesn't get easy down the stretch here in November.
No, it definitely doesn't, and we say that for the season as conference play goes around. But look at Kansas State. This is a team that can capitalize on those turnovers. You look at that 55% shooting. That's a team that the more shots they take, the more they're going to score, because 55 is just a really, really good number when it comes to basketball time.
That's a great point. Same from 46% from behind the arc. That's also going to be really good. So yeah, you're right with that. If State turns the ball over like they have been, I think Kansas State maybe could have a field day offensively.
Well, hopefully it doesn't bite Ty in the butt too much if Kansas State does decide to capitalize on Mississippi State when it comes to basketball. But we move into one of the last segments we have for football on the year. You play Missouri. It was a difficult day for Mississippi State this past Saturday in Columbia, Missouri at Memorial Stadium. You lost 49-27 against the Tigers for the 6th all-time meeting. I'd like to point out 14 of those were scored by Missouri's defense, and Ty will get into that later. But Missouri now leads 4-2 all-time in the series. Mississippi State 5-6 on the year. This was the 67th time Mississippi State has scored in a game. Ty, you look at that game, what'd you think?
Just overall, talk about the first half. I don't think we really tried to establish a run with our running backs at all in the first half. 20 quarterback carries for Mississippi State. Now, that does include sacks, but still a lot of just design carries for Mississippi State's quarterbacks, both Kamario Taylor and Blake Shapen. 20 combined carries by quarterbacks in the first half. 2 combined running back carries between Booth and Bothwell. Each of them both had 1. So didn't really try to establish a run in the first half, at least with your running backs, I thought. He had a lot of option plays that, mostly those were to Shapen, and Shapen Blake decided to keep them. So really not a lot of straight up runs in the first half for Mississippi State. Thought that was a problem. State was able to score in that first half and keep up with Missouri. And honestly, when you got out of the first half, it felt like it was a relief that State wasn't down by more than what they were. Mm-hmm. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the drive that Mississippi State got all the way down to the Missouri 2. Missouri with a bunch of penalties inside the 10-yard line. Got Mississippi State to the 2. They had a lot of plays and opportunities to score. A lot of quarterback design runs called by Jeff Lebby during that possession down inside the 10. State unable to score. They unfortunately have to kick a field goal, and unfortunately the snap goes wild, kind of kicks away, and Missouri turned it all the way, I believe, to the State 20-yard line. So you come up empty on a pivotal drive in that ball game. It was 14-10 at that time. You score a touchdown there, you're at the 2-yard line. You probably should score a touchdown. And you score a touchdown there, you're up 17-14 probably. So just, that was disappointing there in the first half.
It's interesting, too, because I don't believe Jeff Lebby started with the ball that game. I think Missouri started with the ball that game. And
No, we did start with the ball.
Okay, excuse me.
We went 3 and out.
Okay.
Went 3 and out.
Okay,
So
good.
I guess I can see how that was. I guess I can see how that was forgettable. I mean, you go 3 and out on the
Honestly,
first
yeah.
drive. So, and to mention that 3 and out too, or just to kind of talk about it. You got sacked on third down, which you gave up 5 sacks in the game. Plenty of pressures from Missouri's defense. Offensive line just did not play well at all. Didn't give you a chance to win in the ball game. Can't really blame Blake Shapen a lot. A couple of them, maybe a lack of pocket awareness, but that's neither here or there. The offensive line just doesn't give state quarterbacks really a lot of really any sort of good chance to have success.
Well, there was a lot of penalties also in Missouri's territory once you got past that 50-yard mark.
Bunch of targeting penalties too. 2 targeting penalties on that drive that State didn't score from the 2-yard line.
No, but we look at what they did great. Now you look at how Kamario Taylor has been for the past couple games. He scored a touchdown, rush or pass in the past 5 straight games. Anthony Evans, 7 receptions on the day. Now, that is at least 4 receptions he has had in every game this season. So you look at the offense, there are some good things to talk about for the offense, but we also look at the defense. Your pros, Nick Mitchell had a pick, Travion Williams with a forced fumble. You had 2 turnovers on defense.
Gave you a chance to win.
And gave you a chance to win.
Now, I say that, and some people might come back at me and was like, hey,
Well, it's
Ahmad Hardy ran, 49. I mean, 14 of those points were scored by the defense from Missouri. So, defense allows 35, but some people might come back at me and be like, Ahmad Hardy ran for 300 yards in the game. That was definitely a problem. You couldn't stop the run. But at later points in the game, defense gave you pivotal stops in the ball game. 2 pivotal drives in the game for Mississippi State in the second half. Second offensive drive in the third quarter for Mississippi State after a Missouri punt. Score was 21-17. State's offense, a 3 and out, -9 yards on the drive. Final offensive drive in the third quarter after State had kind of survived in that third quarter, forced a 3 and out from Missouri. And, the drive before, State had a great 10, I think it was a 10-play touchdown drive. The drive before, score was 35-24. State, 3 and out, 3 yards gain. So your defense gave you a chance to win at least there in the third quarter with some turnovers, and then your offense couldn't convert. I will mention, too, we wanted to look at some positives. First drive of the second half. You come out, it's a 10-play, 52-yard touchdown drive for Mississippi State. I mentioned how we didn't really try to establish a run with your running backs in the first half. First drive, really. But just talking about the first half and then coming into the second half, 6 running back carries on that drive for Mississippi State, and they marched right down the field after a turnover by the defense. So, State did some things well. Thought we saw a lot out of Kamario Taylor, and we'll talk about that dynamic in just a little bit. But overall, just it was a frustrating football game. Frustrating football game for Mississippi State, and I do want to talk about, before we wrap up with Missouri, the fourth down, the decision to go for it on fourth down, late in the game, 13 minutes to go in the game to go in the ball game. Ball was at the 18-yard line. It resulted in a pick 6. I just don't know that was the right decision. With the way your defense is playing, I know that Missouri has had success running the football, but I just think, your defense has played so well down the stretch. I just worry that, maybe that wasn't the right decision. Maybe kick it back to Missouri. Let your defense go to work. So
yeah, and it's amazing what you can do when you're two-dimensional on offense. But we have a bye week this week, and then we play Ole Miss for the Egg Bowl. So the bye week, I'd love to see a lot of things straighten out, especially what happened during that Missouri game. But we go to the Egg Bowl. It's the 122nd meeting for the Egg Bowl and the most heated rivalry. Can I say that? The most heated rivalry in college football? I think that deserves the title.
I think you're right.
Yeah, okay, well, there we go. We'll call it that. So I went to Oxford last weekend. I feel
bad for you.
Well, that's why I didn't know State started with the ball. I couldn't get the dang ESPN app to work with me. Had to use my buddy's phone and get on Sling, and then I missed the whole first Mississippi State offensive drive. But I saw the struggle against Florida. That's what I wanted to point out.
For Ole Miss?
Yes, for Ole Miss. So the Egg Bowl's in Starkville this year with bowl eligibility on the line for Mississippi State. Overall, What are your thoughts on the Egg Bowl before we kind of break it down like we usually do?
There's a lot going on, already pre-Egg Bowl. Lane Kiffin maybe going to LSU, maybe going to Florida. A lot of drama all around that. So I don't know how much that'll play into the ball game, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Also, Ole Miss a chance to go to the playoffs. Maybe if they lose to Mississippi State, maybe that shifts some minds in the eyes of the committee for the college football playoff. Maybe they don't make the playoffs. I doubt that, but still they need to win this game in order to solidify a spot in the playoffs. Overall, just Ole Miss in general, you got to limit the explosive plays. That's going to be really tough to do. You weren't able to do that against Missouri. I think on the first drive for Missouri last week, 4 of their 6 plays, I believe, on that first drive were explosive plays, and they marched right down the field and scored. Got to limit explosive plays. You talk about explosive plays in running the football. They have Kwan Lacey, one of the best running backs in the Southeastern Conference. Going to be really tough to stop him. And then also, too, a great pass game. Trinidad Chambliss has come on from D2 Ferris State. And been really good in Lane Kiffin's offense. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic between loading the box and kind of unloading the box. And when you do loading the box, what kind of personnel you put inside the box outside of your defensive linemen because of the way Kiffin can scheme you up. Lane Kiffin is one of the best play callers in all of college football. It's going to be tough because, you put too many heavy guys in the box and guys that can't really move laterally. I think State's going to have a tough time defending the pass, and then maybe if State gets weaker in the box, Ole Miss is just going to run it right down our throats. So, it's number one for the defense. This is going to be a really tough game. Ole Miss's offense has been good every year under Lane Kiffin. They're good this season. It's going to be a tough one for your defense. I think for your offense, you got to mention, the Kamario Taylor and Blake Shapen dynamic. I will just
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Let's go ahead. We'll both talk about it.
This is my opinion, okay, Ty? You have to start Kamario Taylor, and this is coming from somebody who just came from the Grove watching in Oxford this past weekend. What Ole Miss struggled against Florida was those explosive plays and DJ Lagway on the run. They thought when Florida was trying to get down the field, they would all kind of play back. DJ Lagway would run for 10, 15 yards on those plays and keep the drive going. To me, Jeff Lebby's offense is catered for Kamario Taylor. Put Kamario Taylor in and see how he fares against Ole Miss because you saw how they struggled against Florida.
I think you have. I'll go ahead and give my opinion too. I think I would agree with you that Kamario Taylor probably gives you the best chance to win this football game. It's no slight to Blake Shapen.
No.
He does a lot of things well. One of the things that he does not do better than Kamario Taylor is getting out of the pocket and running outside of the pocket, making plays with his legs. Shapen, he just doesn't do that as well as Kamario Taylor does, and State really can't afford that with an offensive line that struggled in pass pro this season. I think KT gives you a great chance to win the game, a lot of versatility for him offensively. It brings a lot of versatility to Mississippi State's offense in general, keeps Ole Miss on their toes. He doesn't throw the ball much worse than Shapen does. I just think there's a lot of upside in starting Kamario Taylor in this one. And I think State's offense can have some success if they do that. Obviously, you got to try and run the ball a little bit more with your guys, Booth and Bothwell. Those two, if they were on separate teams, or if just one of them was on Mississippi State, they'd be all SEC candidates in the running back department. Those are two good running backs that they split carries because they're so good. Those are two good running backs that could dominate by themselves on any team in the country. So run the ball well. Please also, offensive line, please just somehow figure out to play your best game. This is an important game for Mississippi State, a chance to get bowl eligible for the first time since 2022. And that season also Mississippi State, that was their last Egg Bowl win in Oxford, a 24-22 win over the Rebels. So a big opportunity in this one for Mississippi State. We meant, after going 2-10 last year, a chance to go 6-6 and go to a bowl game this year. Big opportunity, not only to go to a bowl game, but also you want to beat Ole Miss.
And you mentioned this statistic about against rushing. Now, Kwan Lacey against Florida, 31 carries, 224 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Ole Miss, 5th rushing offense in the SEC. That's 188.7 yards per game. State, dead last in the conference in rushing defense. That's 189.8 yards per game. You know Ole Miss is going to run the football. You know they're going to run it with Lacey. You know they're going to run it with Chambliss. If you don't have somebody in the box to make up for that, you might have a really tough game against Ole Miss.
Last thing I'll say, got to have your hybrid guys like Isaac Smith, and it's great that Isaac Smith's going to be able to get healthy over this bye week that we have. Hybrid guys like Isaac Smith, Tony Mitchell, and then your linebackers just in general have to play a really, really excellent ball game in this one. Both stopping the run and stopping the pass. They got to be huge in this one. It's the last thing I'll say on the game. I'm excited for it. Glad I'll be able to attend. It'll be in Starkville, so looking forward to that one. Just wish it was on Thanksgiving because I miss that dynamic of the Egg Bowl.
Well, now it's on Friday at 11 a.m. We'll be here in Starkville, Mississippi for the Egg Bowl. Hopefully we have just a little bit more football for y'all in the next coming episodes for the Bulldog Breakdown. But that's going to do it for us. We appreciate y'all watching. It's going to be a tough battle against Ole Miss. Show up, show out. Hopefully you can win that game. But the Bulldog Breakdown presented by the Bulldog Student Sports Network. This has been episode 6, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.